Good afternoon, and good afternoon from Rome. I find myself in illustrious company this afternoon. I'm not going to beat around the bush, I'm just going to introduce you straight away to a man that I can only describe as an encyclopedia of world wine, and with particular emphasis on Italy, none other than Ian Daggerton.
Ciao.
Yeah, Ian, we've known each other for how many minutes is it?
And numerous bottles of wine.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we've just had a morning's tasting of the wines of Lazio, and we've got an afternoon of red wines of the same denomination, and I'm looking forward to that. But before we do that, some gentleman has agreed to take a few of my somewhat silly questions about wine, but let's hope he remains friendly at all times. So let's get to it. The person you most admire in the wine world, past or present?
That's always a difficult question because you run the risk of omitting somebody who was very important. But I'd say two people. I would say Luigi Veronelli, who was an Italian wine writer, who was the first to write about wine in modern terms and identify wines by cruise. And I think he showed the way. There were other people who were very important in wine writing in Italy, Bert Anderson for sure. But Luigi Veronelli was the first to talk about cruise, and he really made that an important part of his writing, and I learned a lot from him. And the other person, Steven Spurrier, who was my president at the International Wine Academy of Roma, owned by the Hassler Hotel back in the early 2000s. A very nice man whom I learned a lot from, and I still taste the way he tasted, and I have nothing but great memories of Steven. I was with him then when we were both at Decanter as well, so great memories of Steven. We miss him.
Okay. Was Anderson actually ever, was he the writer that coined that phrase, Super Tuscan? Was it ever?
No, it's believed maybe to have been Nicholas Belfrage, but it's not clear who did.
Uh-huh.
For sure it's the English press who, when they were confronted with these wines that weren't allowed to be Chianti Classico, they were so good, they said these wines are super, let's call them Super Tuscans.
Favorite wine area in Italy? Now
Uh,
you're going to get in trouble.
no. If it's just for the wines, I have to say either Barolo Barbaresco and or the Friuli Colli Orientali,
Interesting.
because I love Piccoli, I love Schippettino, I love Tazzeringhe, I love Ribolla Gialla. And if I really have to include the beauty of the place, then I'm going to surprise you, the Val d'Aosta. Yeah, I love the Val d'Aosta wines, and I think it's one of the most beautiful places on earth. So those three are my favorites.
Okay, fine. Now, because you're obviously renowned as a wine writer, but your food knowledge is equal to that, and because of that, my next question is an easy one for you.
Good.
Favored wine and food pairing, Italian.
Piccoli and Gorgonzola.
I told you that was going to be quick. Okay, first wine memory.
Oh, very easy. What turned me into a wine writer? My father was a psychiatrist, and it seemed too many families ruined by alcoholism, and so he didn't really want us to drink alcohol at home, and so I grew up drinking water with my meals, both at lunch and at dinner. When my parents used to invite people for dinner, sure they'd open up wine, but you know, if you're inviting people, like 20, 30, 40 people, nobody's opening the really good or expensive stuff. So I'd never really tasted anything that really was that impressive, and it's not that I was living in the second coming of Prohibition. My parents liked wines, and my father, being a doctor, had a collection because his patients used to give him lots of wine. One day, at the time I was living in Canada, and Canadians, God bless them, love to drink. And so these young 17, 18-year-olds came over saying, hey Ian, why don't you give us a good bottle of Italian wine? I should mention that destiny always plays a role in people's lives, and two of my best friends in Canada had parents with huge cellars. And so they knew what they were talking about. I didn't. I went down to the cellar to get a bottle of either Catinara or Barolo, which my father used to tell me those were great wines. I didn't know anything about them. And destiny again guides you, and I picked the 1971 Barolo from a really great producer, and you know, it's one of those life-defining moments where, you know, angels come down from the sky playing the harps, girls in bikini everywhere, and I said to myself, this is great.
You remember happy. Yeah.
I need to start drinking. So,
Yeah.
and so I told my dad when he came home, hey dad, I want to start drinking, and he said, okay, just don't get drunk on me, and I said, I never did, never have. And I started going to school. At the time, there really weren't any really wine courses as they are today, but there was a fellow who knew a lot about wine. I studied with him. I read all the books I could find, and slowly, I became who I am today.
Yeah, okay, that's a wonderful, wonderful recollection. What is your first wine memory where you actually partake? Was that it, or was there another?
No. I mean, there's other ones, but they weren't anything memorable. That's the first great one. But in reality, I made it a little simpler. My previous answer. It was 3 days in a row. That first day was a 1971 Barolo, which is a great year. You and I, it was a good book, could probably have made a decent wine in 71.
Yeah.
Then the next day, one of my friends, like I said, his father was actually head of what was called then the Rare Wine and Spirit Store in Toronto, which is in Ontario, the province where Toronto is. They have a state monopoly, and he was head of that state monopoly's rare wine and vintage store. And so these are people who had 1961 and 1945 Bordeaux lying around the home. Granted, back then they were $25.
Yeah.
But so I went there the second day and I drank a 1961 Latour, one of the greatest Bordeaux vintages of all
Terrible
time.
thing for you.
So that was my second day. And the third day, and the other friend whose father really loved, whose uncle really loved German Riesling, served me in 1976 Mühlheimer Hellenkloster Riesling Auslese ice wine, because back then they were still doing that in 1976. And it was great. So I had 3 great wines, 3 days in a row. I've never forgotten them, and that's why I'm a wine writer today.
And you heard it here. Roughly, how many days in a year do you not drink or taste wine?
Honestly,
Yeah. Now you're thinking, oh,
probably not. I'll say 30, but probably not even. I taste wine every day. I like to drink, so I let's just say 30 in the Art Covenier. Yeah.
no,
So 30 would be two and a half a month. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 a month. Let's say 40 days.
Okay, fine. Most difficult Italian wine grape to understand?
Gaglioppo is a grape in Calabria that makes a wine called Ciro.
Yes.
When it's well made, it's beautiful. If not, it's tough because it's a red grape that gives very pale red colored wines and very dusty tannins, and most people don't like them. But if the Ciro is well made, it's a beautiful, lovely wine, and actually makes lovely Rosato wines too, lovely rosé wines.
I was introduced to these wines about 30 years plus because my family, hail from the north, but they lived in Calabria. So one of the first wines I got to drink was this one. I thought my father-in-law was trying to kill me.
It depends, I guess, how much he likes you, but no, but Ciro is very famous, and it probably harkens back to ancient Greece and the Cremissa wine that was given to the winners of the Olympics. So it's a very famous wine. Unfortunately, Gaglioppo is a difficult grape, so unless you vinify well, the wine may be hard to please. Having said that, when it's well made, it's great, it's lovely. I love a good Ciro, especially the Rosatos.
Yeah. I've noticed recently from that part of the world, south Italy, Basilicata, Calabria, the wine quality is improved, and it's noticeable.
Oh, it's an area that should do nothing but great wines. I mean, they're blessed, you know, sun, soil, mountains. Yeah.
Okay, we just tasted 20 sparkling wines. Favorite Italian sparkling wine?
I'm gonna surprise you. If it's good, I love a good prosecco or tartizze, but it has to be good.
Okay.
And because
I wasn't expecting that.
most people think of prosecco as a cheap quaffable,
Mm.
to use an Englishism. And in fact, prosecco, when it's well made, is just delicious. It smells and tastes of white peach, white not yellow peach. The original Bellini, the cocktail, the recipe calls for white peach juice. And it's just a marvelous. Cartizza especially can be fantastic.
Okay, fine. This is a difficult one.
Mm-hmm.
If you could drink only one white and one red Italian wine for the rest of your life, what would those wines be?
Boy, that's almost impossible.
The very thought of it is giving you nightmares, but for the rest of your life.
You know, I love wine and I love wine grapes. So it's impossible. I mean,
you don't have to answer.
no, I do. I mean, I can't answer with just one grape though. I mean, you know, I love Malvasia Puntinata and Lazio. I think it's a great grape that just needs to be handled differently and better. I love Ribolla Gialla, preferably non-macerated. I love Malvasia Istriana, delicately aromatic. I love Nebbiolo, of course, who doesn't. Sangiovese, it's great. I really love so many grapes and so many wines. I really don't have a favorite, really.
Okay, honest answer.
I mean, honestly, and it's not because I don't want to mention a name. I love Grignolino in Piedmont. One of my favorite wines in the world is Grignolino. So I could go on.
Yeah. Okay. Most embarrassing wine moment.
You know, when I was younger, I didn't have the experience I have today, and this is something I've never forgotten. About 20 years ago, I was asked, actually more, about 25 years ago, I was asked to guide a wine tasting in a part of the world where they like big, fat, oaky, caramel accented wines. And they asked me to do a tasting on white wines of Italy. And what I did was what I thought was right, and that is I showed them 8 wines from Italy that were very beautiful, elegant, refined, minerally wines, but only one of them was oaked. And the group of knowledgeable by their standards wine lovers, never seen anybody get so mad in my life. They were like livid. They hated the wines. The only one they liked, of course, was the oaked one, which, however, was expensive, and they just thought it was a complete waste of time, and I wasted their time. And the organizer of the tasting actually called me the next day to apologize for the behavior of the crowd. But it taught me a lesson, and that is, you can't always do what you think is really best. You have to also think of the people you have in front of you. If you have beginners, it's pointless to give them Chevalier Montrachet. If you have knowledgeable people, then you probably can't give them $3 wines. And that comes with experience. So that was my mistake.
Honest answer. What, in your opinion, is the most underrated Italian wine region?
Underrated Italian wine region. For its potential, I think Lazio and Abruzzo are probably the two I would say. Abruzzo has amazing Montepulciano, Trebbiano d'Abruzzo, and Pecorino wines. The problem is that they aren't all of the same quality level, which is the problem in Italy, right? You have some vertices of quality, which are world-class wines, and then you have many wines. Montepulciano and Abruzzo, you know, without mentioning names, there's 2 or 3 which rank with the best of Barolo and Brunello. Yeah. Lazio, same thing. Lazio has these amazing Cesanese wines. The Cesanese grape, there's 2 of them. Cesanese Comune and Cesanese del File. The denominations are called Cesanese del Piglio, Cesanese di Olevano Romano, and Cesanese del File. I can't begin to tell you how good the wines made with the Cesanese grape varieties are. They're delicately aromatic, and I use the aromatic word in the sense of a muscat variety. It is delicately aromatic when it's good. It's amazingly perfumed, amazing red cherry flavors and aromas. It's just an amazing wine. And I can mention this, it's not from Lazio, but Andrea Franchetti, the man who created Tilde di Trinoro, showed how great Cesanese was, even in Tuscany, because he used to make a wine called Cincinnato, which was as good as all the other famous super Tuscans he made. So Cesanese is a difficult grape to grow and difficult grape to vinify, and that's why it's not as popular as, let's say, Merlot, but it's really one of Italy's 10 greatest grapes, and the wines are fantastic.
I totally agree with Franchetti. I think, sadly, not with us anymore, but no, he was a great grower and a wonderful blender.
Absolutely.
A lot of his wines.
Absolutely.
And finally, because we're probably running out of time, the most precious wine bottle in your collection, not necessarily price, but something that you hold very, very close to your heart.
A Prix Blanc from the Val d'Aosta made by the Abbé Boujard, who was a priest who basically put the Blanc de Mourget et La Salle denomination on the map. That's a wine that can no longer be found. But honestly, I have to say that one, just because of all the memories, is the one that means a lot to me.
You can see that on your face.
But I think a 1985 Piccolic by Specogna, which really showed me how great Piccolic could be from a real Grand Cru, the Rocca Bernarda. And then I'm going to say something not Italian, an Alsatian Gewürz from 1961, which proved to me just how well Gewürztraminers can age. And that goes for the Italian ones too, from Alto Adige. So, but again, I go back to what I said earlier. I love wine, so I have lots of favorite bottles, and a lot of them are precious. Some were given to me by friends. Some were linked to special memories. I just like wine.
Okay, fine. I have two things to thank you for.
Sure.
One, to inviting me to Rome today for this tasting, and I'm looking forward to the afternoon tasting. There's one or two people here that are looking forward to it as well. And secondly, for doing this little sort of get together. And generally, thank you for being the man that you are, and the knowledge that you have, and expressing your knowledge in a particular, engaging way to us fans.
Oh, thank you, Tony. And let me give that compliment right back. I think it's always thrilling for me when I can meet a wine lover such as yourself and a wine colleague, a wine writing colleague, who is willing to come down all the way from Tuscany to Rome, take the train. Nobody's paying us to do this. We don't have an association, a consortium, anybody behind us paying our way, and yet we do it out of passion, and we do it to taste 80 to 100 wines in Lazio. We're not tasting Sassicaia today, we're not tasting Mascarello or Gaia, we're tasting wines that are very well made from small family units that deserve their place in the sun and to be talked about. Not all are as good as they should be. Maybe not all are memorable, but there are some jewels among these, and I think it's really great to meet someone like you who's willing to come all the way to Rome and taste through them. Because if I said to somebody, come, we're going to be doing Sassicaia and everybody else, sure, I have a lineup. I have a lineup of people coming. But it's so exciting for me when I have people like you and friends like Fabio Charla and the Trimanis who are willing to do this, because everybody here today is taking their time, and we're in a wine shop right now that's actually open for business, and they have other things to do than sit here with us and open bottles and then have to throw these bottles away. And like I say, nobody's getting paid to do this. We're just doing this out of passion and the willingness to learn and broadcast knowledge. So I thank you for having come, and I look forward to tasting with you again.
My pleasure.
Really?
One final thing.
Yeah.
My 5 time.
Sure. Thank you.